The Saints wrapped up their training camp practices in California today. Sounds like the only exciting thing that happened was the scuffle at the end. I'm Tim. Let's talk Saints. Um, per what Dennis Allen kind of said yesterday in his post practice talk was today was going to be another lighter practice in California. Um, no pads. It's going to be a shorter practice, and it sounds like it was cut even a little shorter for the um, no real details out there, but described as a flare up, a scuffle, a fight, whatever it was, right at the end of practice. Um, so not exactly ending on a high note there. Um, he talked a little bit today about, he was asked about young players or have some of them kind of started out hot and cooled off, so to speak, by the end of practice. And he's like, yeah, he basically said over the course of camp, just a lot of players have kind of had, and not just the young ones, this kind of ebb and flow. But especially happening to the young players where they'll start looking good and looking like they have everything and moving in the right direction. Then they have kind of some type of setback. Um, and what they're really looking for is consistency from guys. He said um, the coaching staff is just kind of looking at it. We'd prefer steady, consistent play and practices out of these guys. He said because these some of these guys are taking some pretty big up and downs, and he said and that's hard from a coaching standpoint to game plan and prepare once you get into the season when you don't know you can't rely on how guys are going to be able to perform week to week or they can stay healthy week to week. And he said those are things that they're considering as part of the evaluation process, which I found kind of curious. And again, I thinking a lot of these post practice press conferences, especially when talking about injuries, he's been sending some messages, and I think that kind of like sounded like another clear one where you guys need to stay on the field. So, for whatever it's worth, that message was sent again. Um, and the only other thing he really talked about of note, it was his Q&A was as short. It seemed like almost as practice was. I just got the feeling, honestly, like kind of everybody involved, the coaches, the media. It sounds even like some of the players. They're just like this was like getaway day. They were just happy to get out of there. That the grind is over and they're going to play a game Sunday and then come back home to Louisiana. But he did say one of the good little nuggets that came out of it. They talked about the pass rush again. He's talking about outside and inside. He said he's pleased with their ability to rush with power. That he's seeing that up and down the defensive line. Because he made the point. He said a lot of times you see these guys coming out of college, and they have tremendous sack numbers and potential and everything else that is talked about. And he said, but you don't see them do much in the pros, mostly because when you break it down in college, they're using almost exclusively a speed rush and trying to run around an offensive tackle. And he goes, you find in the NFL that becomes a lot harder to do. He said it could still be done, and it's definitely done at times. But if that's the only way you have to get to the quarterback, he said, NFL, they're going to figure it out, and at some point they're going to force you to go through them instead of around them. And he said that's why their philosophy. I don't know if I've ever heard him say this, what their actual philosophy is on defensive linemen, but he says they want the bigger, stronger guys with some physical ability. Um, and by that, I'm assuming he means some quickness and some agility and a little explosion. So when they have to go through the wall of the offensive lineman, they can get through the wall of the offensive lineman. They're not just trying to rely on trying to run around somebody or beat them with a quick step off the edge and blow by him. Um, so I thought that was a real interesting, and it kind of makes sense that when you're looking at Granderson and Young, uh, Granderson seems to be more of a power guy. Young has some twitch to him when he's healthy, um, but he's a big, strong dude himself. So I mean, he can run through you if he's got to. Um, Foskey, one of the things talked about in the offseason about him, his need to having to get stronger. Brzee, he mentioned a few weeks back. Um, through the process of ending college and rolling all the way into the NFL season where those guys basically don't get a break. He thought The body type was a little off in the lower body, and he said he worked on that all off season and came in. And again, he didn't explicitly say it, but I was taking that as good, strong power base for an interior guy where he doesn't maybe get kind of pushed around as much as he did last year in the running game. So I kind of get the philosophy they're going for as opposed to some other NFL teams and what they're trying to do. And I'd say it's largely successful. Last year or two, maybe we just didn't quite have the defensive line play we wanted, but it looks like we've all intents and purposes looks like we have kind of rebuilt it and maybe get in the right direction of what they're trying to do and being able to succeed at what they're trying to do. And that's going to make the whole defense better because now you've got guys to fit your scheme and the way you want to run it, so you can do all the things you want to do. The only other thing they were trying hard to ask about an update on Taliesin Fuaga. Uh, is he going to play Sunday? And DA's like, I don't know. If he's healthy enough, he's going to play. If not, he won't. But Nick Underhill tried to get around to it about a question about week one availability, and he basically said, "Look, you can go home and rest tonight as far as this week one availability." So at least it sounded like DA and the Saints organization just don't have any concerns that Fuaga may miss some time in the preseason, but that he'll be ready to go by week one. Um, not a whole lot went on today. Talk about the injuries a little bit. Shaheed wound up back out today with apparently what they're calling a toe/foot injury. Um, Aziram, our seventh round pick at tackle, ankle was out. We did get some guys back. Um, A.T. Perry participated in some individual drills, hoping he's ready to go Sunday because really want to see him continue to develop. Bradford and McCain were back full time, and Amadi, Lattimore, and Adebo were seen again doing some sideline work. So that's two of our big name cornerbacks, and Amadi fighting to make the team as one of the backups like he was last year. So kind of hopefully we're getting those guys healthy and back soon. As far as practice went, because there was no Fuaga, Landon Young and Oli Uda worked at left tackle. Sounds like they kind of alternated in and out. Um, Pretty much practice was mostly they worked full field drives and then did some hurry up, basically 2-minute stuff towards the end. It sounded pretty much like the offense just struggled. The term I kept seeing was to finish drives. Sound familiar? So apparently, if it's a struggle to finish, I'm kind of reading on that. Yeah, they were getting to a decent start like we did mostly last year, and then just kind of bogging down and not being able to finish, get in the end zone. They said until Jake Hayner led a TD drive, basically to close practice. It was one of the 2-minute drills. They went right down and didn't say how they scored, but it said did culminate in a touchdown. Which I'm wondering if that's when the scuffle broke out right after the offense finally scored. If I don't know what the deal was on that. Um, saw some mentions to it on Twitter, and they briefly kind of talked about it at the beginning of the presser with Dennis Allen, and it kind of sounded like that's kind of when they shut practice down. The only other thing that I really saw is they did the special teams work today. It was groupie kicking again, our back turn today. Um, 8 of 9 would have missed from 40, and it's like, man, you, you can't miss those less than 40, 40 or less. But he did. And they actually, of those 9, none of those attempts were 50 or longer. So it's competition. And I think more than likely Groupie's going to probably win the job just because of the exemption that we can get on the other kicker. But um, come on, buddy. Those 40s and in, you got to nail them. And Spencer Rattler also talked to the media after practice. It's not a real long Q&A session, but One thing they did ask him, and actually it was a couple questions, but basically the gist of it was, um, they asked him, "Hey, what, after you played game one in Arizona, what to the point now, what did you do in that game that you need to improve on?" Um, and in a rare moment where an athlete tells you exactly what he needs to improve on from the last time he played, Rattler's one of the things he brought about is that I need to work on to improve my progressions. He said working through my progressions that's definitely one of the areas that I just need to keep getting better and better on every day. And he said, and I have been. And I think that kind of leads into the next thing he talked about working on, that he felt like in Arizona is not leaving the pocket too early. I there were times where watching the game, especially on replay, I'm on that it seemed like he would get a clean pocket, but he still wanted to kind of duck out of there sometimes. I mean, he mentioned, yeah, that felt he left too early on some of them, and that needs to stay in and keep going through his progressions before knowing when he needs to stay in and do that, and then knowing when he feels and goes, I got to get out of here, and that's when he needs to roll out, move out, and he acknowledged that. Um, Specifically, they asked him about well, does the speed of the game, since it's, they always talk about rookies having to adjust to the speed of the game, did that have something to do with it? And I'm in a borderline cocky slash confident answer. He's like, no, not really. Um, he says this offense is kind of designed to not allow you to speed the game up. It's designed to help you stay in control and control a lot of stuff, like he mentioned, the pass rush and all, with the ability for quarterbacks to be able to move around in this system. But you have to play in the system. He said you have to stay in control. You always have to go through your reads on every play, every step of it. So, and he's like, need to get a little better on that. So I'm kind of happy to hear, just going, yeah, these are the things I need to work on. And if you break down film, and I'm not a huge breakdown film guy, but there were times when I was kind of looking, going, no, maybe nobody was open downfield, and he was just, that was it. Even though his pocket was pretty clean, he really wasn't getting a lot of pressure. That's why he rolled out of there, moved out of there. But he's admitting, maybe I just didn't get all the way through him, and I had a chance to, and I should have done it then bail. So good to know that pocket presence. He talks about it, that he has a pocket presence of, or he felt it was pretty good, but needs to be better, because when he needs to stay in and hang in there and throw the ball, he needs to stay in there and throw the ball. Um, and the other thing he did mention too, and I think this is collectively the whole entire offense is working on improving on converting third downs. I mean, who are we kidding on that one? That's been a kind of a thorn in the offensive side for a couple of seasons now. So, uh, other than a walkthrough tomorrow, this is pretty much it between now and the 49ers game. They didn't game plan last week. They didn't talk about anything about it this week. Pretty sure they won't game plan. They probably won't chart plays or script plays or anything like that. So I'm assuming you're going to probably see uh, pretty much what you saw in a way last Saturday in Arizona. And the expectations, mine on this, they were very low last week in Arizona. They're almost as low or even lower this week going into this game. One of the big things is the reason why the 49ers canceled the joint practices this week is they were so banged up, they didn't even know if they'd be able to put enough players on the field to be able to hold joint practices. And the Saints are so banged up when you look at their injury report that I'm just sick and tired of looking at. They're almost in the same boat in some positions. It's just not very deep. So I don't know if either team has any clue who's going to play Sunday, what kind of work they're going to be able to get with ones and twos and threes going up against each other or whatever. So I'm basically, my expectations are just lower to look. I just want to see real effort no matter who we put out there. And I want to see guys making big plays. I want to see guys doing their job. And I want to see guys trying to say, hey, this is my job or this is my spot on the team, and go seize it. Um, I think we saw some of that Saturday. I think the effort was pretty good for the most part, but it sounded like the effort wasn't good for most of this practice, especially this week in practices, especially on the offensive side. And I do not want to see that carry over into Sunday. Um, probably the two things specifically I'm looking at is one, the backup quarterbacks. I want to see Hayne and Rattler keep developing. I thought for the most part, it wasn't 100% pure by any stretch Saturday, but I thought for the most part they both did pretty good jobs. Both did great jobs in running 2-minute offense. It seems like both of them kind of have a knack for that, which is getting to the point if they ever enter the game, we might just have to go no huddle, hurry up, like the Bills used to do, or Chip Kelly always liked to do in Oregon, something along those lines. We'll see. And the other thing I want to see is we have so many young and athletic wide receivers out there that I want them to start seeing them making the big plays and strengthen possible holds that they might have at grabbing spots on this team, because those are the guys I want to see out there. We talked about this the other day when we were talking about the wide receiver room, and I think there's a lot of opportunity there for some young guys, possibly some overlooked guys. One of them could even be Samson Nakua. Um, he talked to the press the other day, and I encourage everybody to um, go watch it, because you listen to that young man. I don't see how you wouldn't be able to pull for him. And he's got a little size, and he seems to be showing some ability to play wide receiver. Just knocked around with a few teams in the NFL in their practice squads and tryouts, and just couldn't lock on. So kind of hoping maybe he shows out that he could be the fifth or sixth receiver on this team and go ahead and make it. So pretty much all we got for today. Keep in mind that after the game Sunday night, 10 o'clock Central Time, Jay Boy and I will be on live. Uh, Hopefully, we'll have lots of good things to talk about after the game on Sunday, but we'll see how it goes. And like I said, just saying, my expectations are pretty much down here, and if they don't exceed my expectations as low as they are right now Sunday night, we're in real trouble. So give me a thumbs up if you're down there with me, going like, I'm not expecting, um, the 2000 Ravens or anything like that showing up. But specifically going, I I just don't know how real this game's going to be. Don't know who's going to play in, who's going to be available, what's basically going to happen. So, um, give me the thumbs up if you just say I want to see the young guys play well and a chance to really grab some spots on this roster. If you're new here, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button, notifications. Um, Now that training camp is winding down, we won't probably not quite be on every day, with something to talk about. But when we are on doing our regular shows, once we get back on that schedule, you'll know what it is. You'll be able to pop in and join us and tell us anything you want to tell us in the comments. They've been wildly fun all week this week, oddly enough. So as bad as practicing the Saints and all that stuff has been, the comments have been really a blast. Appreciate you guys for that. So till I see you Sunday night, I'm Tim. Peace out. Who dat?